Another beautiful day in southern Alberta. Today I'm going to do some learnings, Pollard Posts. Now one thing you will notice here is that these are growing up right to the top. They're growing up, up, up. Those are about 7-8 feet up in the air. But the top of the, from about 6 feet up of this cattle panel arch has nothing growing on it. And therefore, that has several implications. One of the things that I'm thinking is that I've got this space, this cattle panel trellis, that I could fill in with a more permanent vine, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But I'm thinking grapes might do that, and that would be fantastic. Multiple grapes, and here's two that it took like 40 days from bare root planting to come up, but they came up. They are getting established slowly, and they don't get great sun, but they do get some sun. Multiple hours in the afternoon. The idea is they come up here, and if they really get going, then I'll build a trellis that connects over to this tower over here, and we'll also connect down to this grape, which I put in here. These are all valiant grapes, which are very hardy, and hopefully next year or two we'll get established and start producing. Put a different variety of grape in here. It basically did nothing, and it was a write-off. Never did anything green. And on the other side, we've got a lot more light. Here, what I do is to come up on a trellis there. It was in there, did nothing, so I pulled it out and put this perennial in its place. I'm on the outside of my property, community green space. To the right, there's my property, there to the left. And as you can see, I built up different levels with these huge timbers and about a 4 to 6 inch gap between the timber and this fence. So what I want to do is I want to dig out the soil, kind of like what my neighbor's done here, where she's dug out on the outside of the fence and planted peas, and use the fence as a trellis. Now of course she doesn't have any heat sink, just in the opposite side of the fence like I do. But I think I can do that. I'm going to use the fence as a trellis. I'm going to dig out and let the roots go onto the community green space, so use that space. And the other thing I found is that when I water the garden, excess water just drains underneath all my fill in those terraces and waters this grass. And this grass just below my garden is lush, and the park, and you come away from my house, it's pretty dry. And you can see from very dry, now we come under my house, lush, and lots of extra grass because it was much higher. So that's the plan. Now I've been debating what I want to put in there, and I think I've come to a conclusion based on these Pollard Posts. So these Pollard Posts, there's one there, my westernmost one, and unfortunately it has a bean and a pea that came up, but the moles got in and dug up all around and killed half the seedlings around, so was basically not successful. This happened in two other pollard posts too. The other thing to note is I planted climbing pole beans. I planted climbing sugar snap peas, or peas, sorry. And I planted a heat-loving spinach called Malabar spinach. And unfortunately, the Malabar was a complete failure. I don't think it came up anywhere. So, I've got a few seeds left. I might try something in the future, but that just did not work. Here's the next pollard post here, and you can see there's some beans, but basically not like I was hoping. So, and what I'm thinking is, you look, that pollard post is very close to this cattle panel arch. And as I mentioned earlier, the cattle panel arch, there's an area, a width of about 3 feet along the very top of the arch that the beans just don't get there. So it lets in a lot of light, and what I might do is try to put a grape in here, let it grow up this pollard, and then extend over to the top, the ridge of this arch, and I'll train it along the ridge so that will fill in the top of the arch, provide more shade for cool weather crops inside, and allow room for the grapes to really go wild. So right here, I have a grape that I've been nursing along for several years, and finally this year it really took off, and I've trained it onto this fence. So it's gone about 10 feet in that direction and 10 or 12 feet in that direction, which is fantastic. It's also gone vertical up into this bird feeder. So I'm going to wrap it around there, and it's sent off 2 horizontals lower down that are reaching right into that pollard. So I've attached it there. There's another one right just above ground level, got into the pollard, and what I want to do is to push the vine up the pollard, gets to the top, go over to the ridge of the cattle panel, and go the length of the cattle panel. If successful, it's going to alleviate several problems. It's going to cover the crest of the cattle panel and provide shade for my shade-loving plants inside. It's also going to have a sturdy trellis to attach to, and if it does establish, then the grapes will form up there, and the clusters will just hang down under the arch like my beans, like those purple beans have done, and be very easy to harvest and look fantastic. So here's my grape. I've got one single cluster, first one ever, so yoo-hoo, and I want to keep training this along the fence. Here's another pollard post, this one right next to the hothouse. The only thing that got established here is beans, and you can see there's a couple beans, but I'm already on my second harvest in the garden, in the main garden. So not very effective. It didn't really fill in like I was hoping. But again, if I plant another grape like right in there, or even better, I was thinking I'm going to put the grape outside the fence. I'm going to dig out the grass in like an arch in here. I'll dig out the grass. I'll put the grape right in there, maybe just behind the fence, and have it come up this post. I'll stretch over to the pollard post and and then stretch over onto the top of that cattle panel arch. And then in addition, we'll go horizontal along this fence to the west and to the east. Here I have a Minnesota grape, which I just planted this year. It's done actually not too bad. It's quite a bit of growth. It got up. It's reaching, I planted it at an angle to push it right onto the fence immediately. And it's into the fence, and we'll just stretch it that way. And then in this case, there's no arch, but I can put it into that Pollard post and grow it up all around that post. And then of course, use the fence going this direction onto my neighbor's fence, and this direction onto my fence. Now, one of the things that I'm hoping with these ones that are done on the outside is that, as you can see, I got a good 2 feet of height of these timbers, and I've got direct sun, almost full. As you can see, I've got 2 feet of height of my terrace, and it gets direct sun pretty much all day, morning to evening, especially in the spring and fall. So that's going to heat up. It's going to provide warmth. It's also going to provide protection against the wind. And so if I put my grape on the outside here, I get the heat from the wall. I get the protection. It's a little windbreak. The wind's going to come and go up over the top, so this is going to be protected. So I think putting these grapes in here, using my vertical fence and my Pollard posts, might be a great way to get some grapes in here. Anyway, that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. You can see this grass outside the fence. It's very thick, and it is very moist, very moist. And this is water that is running through and spilling over from these drip irrigation pipes. You know, here's one here, comes down on the edge, it just drips down and then under onto this grass, and you know, making beautiful grass, but that's not really helping me out, and I'm paying for the water. So what I want to do is put wood chips on those beds to preserve the water, cut back on the drip, and plant something on the outside here that takes advantage of this fence that you know, I can use for a trellis. Nice looking grapes. I don't think we're going to get any actual grapes out of here, but you know, looks good, and perhaps next year they'll come. This is all new growth, and my one cluster is down. Oh, I can't see it from here, but it's through there. It's a tiny cluster, and that's my first grapes in 3 years. So his goldenrod is just not, I mean, it's doing well, but it's just a tiny cluster. Hasn't really spread much, so you know, I'll leave it, but it's not really doing what I want. It probably doesn't have enough light. My phlox, same thing. That's the original plant there. It's spread a couple spots, so it's doing a bit better. So I'm going to let that go. And of course, these lupins, they spread like mad, and I may have to dig some of those out. Now, this is my triple plum, which I put in this year, and it's done okay. It's expanding. I've got 3 plums on it, and these are the red plums, which are getting ready to harvest. There's 3 of them, so that's my harvest for this first year, and hopefully that'll take off as we go. Now that variety is the Pembina plum, and so it's done very well. Could possibly be Brook Red, these other 2, but I'm not sure. And my third variety, the other 2 are the central ones are Opata plums. So it's getting there, getting established, and that's what we want. This is my little wildflower area. I spread seeds everywhere. So I've got some stuff growing in there at the base of the ladder. I've got my hazelnut back by the chair. It's going to grow up and take over that area. And here, I got some strawberries, some wild geraniums, and that's Cosmos getting ready to flower. I'm not sure what that is, I'll have to check. Or this beautiful blue thing right here. Again, something I have to check. But point is, I'm getting some wildflowers established, so it'll fill in and be quite nice. Now I harvested all my remaining raspberries like a week ago, and then I cut out all the old stalks, and just for ease of use while I was in the patch was dumping them on the ground. And what I decided to do is I'm just going to take those, I'm going to chop them up, and instead of putting them in the compost, chop them up and just lay them down as a mulch, stick mulch, right in my beds. Here's my bags. I had red onions in the lower bag, so they've come up. They were not bad. They're drying. This is a ground cherry, which got lots of flowers, cherries on it, and still flowering like mad. So, that's turned out well. I gotta find a place for it to grow in the ground, and I understand it's annual. These sunflowers didn't do anything. They just came up and that was it. This is a bee balm. It's doing great. Hasn't flowered yet, but this is a perennial. So what I'll do in the next few weeks is I'll probably take that up and split it in half and try to find a spot in the garden for it. And the same thing with these black-eyed Susans, which are doing great also. These are perennial. I really love those to get into a couple of spots in the garden. My herbs are doing very well. The basil. Sage. Rosemary, chives. My dill, I cut a bunch of those for pickling. Beautiful flowers there. This one is oregano. So if that's a perennial, I'm going to plant that out.